the beautiful panel with us, which you experienced day before yesterday, Ms. Nidhi Bansal, Dr. Shomi Roy, uh, Ms. Nidhi Bansal, CEO of India City Walks in India with locals, having the expertise, in the field of taking the tourism product across the country, experiencing a different tourism product to the entire, tourism enthusiast who are experiencing the cities along with her. Dr. Shomi Roy, she is an avid reader, researcher, and storyteller, completed her PhD, and she was also there with us day before yesterday on this product, on this long journey. And today we are taking you down the memory lane of Indian freedom struggle, our long cherished history, the memories, the freedom struggle of all our heroes, those who fought against the British rule and got us the much desired freedom on 15th August 1947. To begin with, I'll just mention that the cellular jail, which has been an important milestone in the during the Indian freedom struggle, and the cellular jail, which has been known as the Kala Pani. Why Kala Pani? Because all those the great Indian heroes of our Indian freedom struggle, they were suppressed, beaten, threatened, and pushed aside and sent to cellular jail so that they could not come back on the front line to fight against the Britishers. But that could not stop the much enthusiast of our heroes. Ultimately, Britishers had to surrender, and we conquered everything against all odds. But we have got whole lot of series of unnamed, unsung heroes, those who sacrificed their lives in Andaman, in cellular jail. So from the tourism perspective, from the Ministry of Tourism perspective, we are taking you as a tourist where you can go and visit the beautiful Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and you can witness the great Indian freedom struggle memoirs. While visiting the cellular jail, we'll be taking you through the beautiful architecture style of the cellular jail, how our freedom fighters were kept there, how was their lives, how they were being threatened, uh, being tortured, how they were kept isolated, and how they were hanged in isolation without being taken any names, but their names have been written on the wall of the entire Indian history. There are many prominent figures which we are much more aware. We have got the presence of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose on that soil, and many more other things. So we'll be taking you through all these aspects, through all these corridors. So we'll start from Ms. Nidhi Bansal, who will be taking you directly to the cellular. Over to you, Nidhi.
Thank you, sir, for the introduction to the webinar. Today is a new day, and we have a story to share with all of you. Every nook and corner of our country has a narrative of the past woven into a bigger theme. The Indian story is never complete without its people who have maintained a continuity of heritage, even with modern lifestyles. As a continued effort, our parent organization, City Explorers Private Limited, with its several flagship brands, operates specifically in the delivery of slow and thematic experiential tourism products. Some of our popular brands are India City Walks, India with Locals, India Heritage Walks, Storytellers of India, Delhi Walks, and more. We connect and showcase both the historical and the contemporary facets of different cities of India as a melange of cultures. We are thankful to the Ministry of Tourism for this opportunity. A story that reeks of apathy, the one which unfolds mystery with every layer. This is the story of the cellular jail. Remoteness and terror of the facility gave it its name, Kala Pani. The forbidden high walls on the Andaman Islands, constructed by the English colonial rule in the year 1896, brings back tales of atrocities and adversity. The penal colony has witnessed thousands of Indian freedom fighters suffering from the tyranny of colonial power in the name of justice. Dreaded by all, this place has heart-wrenching accounts of our revolutionaries and martyrs. Today, we take you on a journey of India's independence struggle through the galleries and cell of the cellular jail. Let's begin with the webinar, Cellular Jail, Letters, Memoirs, and Memories. I request you to play the video, please.
से शुरू हम करें ये फसाना, शहीदों की बातें वो गुजरा जमाना, 57 की जंग में फिरंगी खिलाफ बुलंद जब किया था सभी ने आवाज, आजादी गुनाह है बताया गया था और हजारों को फांसी चढ़ाया गया था। सजा कुछ ने पाई समंदर के पार, समीरामीज में फिर होके वो सवार, वतन के लिए चल पड़ा था दीवाना, कहाँ से शुरू हम करें ये फसाना।
Thank you. कहाँ से शुरू हम करें ये फसाना? It all began in the 19th century with a jolt that shook the British Empire. In our last webinar, we spoke extensively about the revolt, the mutiny, the uprising, the war of 1857. It was this event that actually made it necessary for the English to take drastic steps. They had to safeguard their supremacy by hook or crook. For that to happen, they had to put a majority of the dissenting population behind the bars. The flame of the 19th century was carried forward in the 20th century. But this time, the political turmoil saw a different trajectory. On one hand, we had Mahatma Gandhi's policy of non-violence, non-cooperation, and civil disobedience. On the other hand, there was a rise in opposition with the young that believed in armed revolution. There was yet another fraction which made their pen act like a sword, the likes of Rabindranath Tagore, Qazi Nazrul Islam, Subramanyam Bharati, and many more who openly challenged the English rule. The women in our country also participated extensively in the nationalist movement. This entire scene was giving the English administration sleepless nights. With each passing day, the norms of treason were getting stricter. The list of banned literary works was increasing. The English were on a spree to justify their acts of atrocity. To silence the patriotic sentiments, to ensure complete control over the Indian minds, and to bring discipline, the English administration brought in some dramatic measures. What were these measures and how were they carried out? Let us understand all this from my colleague, Dr. Shomi Roy.
Let us start our story from the very beginning. In an attempt to expand the limits of English empire in the seas, Lieutenant Archibald Blair went out in an expedition to explore the sea routes in Bay of Bengal. The intent was to establish a British settlement. It is when the first surveying voyage to Andaman Islands took place between December 1788 and April 1789, as a result of which the Governor General decided to colonize the islands in order to provide a safe harbor in the war against pirates. One of the first islands to be under the British rule was the Viper Island. This island derives its name from the vessel HMS Viper, in which the Lieutenant Archibald Blair came to Andaman and Nicobar Islands. This small island was the site of a jail which the British used to imprison convicts and political prisoners. It has still the ruins of gallows atop a hillock. The Viper Jail was abandoned when Cellular Jail was constructed between 1896 and 1906. This was the first time that one saw about the Viper Jail. In any talk about Andaman and its role in the freedom struggle, it always is Cellular Jail that finds frequent mention. But many, many years before Cellular Jail was even constructed, it was Viper Jail that was used by the British to inflict the worst form of torture and hardship on those who ever strove to free our country from the British rule. The conditions at Viper Jail were such that the place got the notorious name Viper Chain Gang Jail. Those who challenged the might of the British authority were chained together and confined at night by a chain running through coupling of irons around their legs. But this was not enough. As time passed and the settlement grew in size, the authorities found it difficult to enforce strict discipline. A high security jail that could hold a large number in solitary confinement was absolutely necessary. This is when the construction of Cellular Jail was started in 1896 and completed in 1906, based on the suggestions from 1890's Lal Lethbridge Commission. Kala Pani ki saza was dreaded even by the worst of offenders. It was believed who gets to Kala Pani never returns. This was known as the Bastille of India. The remote islands were considered to be a suitable place to punish the freedom fighters. Not only were they isolated from the mainland, the overseas journey to the islands also threatened them with loss of caste, resulting in social exclusion. There was no escaping. There was no way to get back to the mainland. There was no way to get back to their homeland. The construction of Cellular Jail was carried out by the prisoners deported from the mainland. Building material was brought in from Burma. The accommodation of officers, including the jailer and assistant jailers, was provided within the building. Cellular Jail was a massive 3-storied structure with 7 wings of unequal length. The Cellular Jail was in such a dramatic way that all of these unequal length wings were radiating from a central watchtower shaped like spokes of a wheel. The architecture of Cellular Jail was conceptualized on the basis of the Pennsylvania system or separate system theory, in which separate confinement was necessary for each inmate for complete isolation from other inmates. No communication of any kind was ever possible between the prisoners in the same or different wings. With the help of the image that you see on the slide, let's decode whatever is possible of this architectural pattern. The design of Cellular Jail was heavily influenced by the panopticon theory, where the radiating wings allowed single guard to keep watch on all prisoners from the central watchtower, but without the prisoners being able to see him. The individual cells in the jail were placed in one single row along with 4 feet wide veranda, just the way you see it on the screen, running the whole length of every wing. Each cell had a defined measurement, secured by a heavy iron grill door with specially designed latch system. Confinement in the small cells gave the facility its name, Cellular Jail. About 20,000 cubic feet of local stone and 30 lakhs bricks were made by the prisoners were used to construct this jail. The infrastructure for hard labor, or should I say punishment for prisoners, such as iron grills, chains, fetters, shackles, flogging stands, oil mills, all of them were specially brought in from England. Just imagine the kind of preconceived torture strategy that was put in place for all our freedom fighters. This jail saw some of the most prominent freedom fighters of our country. Here, most of the prisoners were labeled as either political prisoners, convicts, inmates, prisoners, or criminals. Sometimes even regular criminals were deported in the Cellular Jail. What you see on the slide is just a minor glimpse of a list that has names of our prominent political prisoners. Yes, sometimes regular prisoners, criminals would be overlapped with our political prisoners given the nature of the entire penal code system. Freedom fighters taking part in various movements, including the Wahhabi movement, the Jugantor group, the Manipur revolt, a large number of Burmese who were against the British rule were all deported to the penal punishment in Andamans. Long before Guantanamo Bay was developed as a no-escape prison, this was the prison built by the English to remain on the helm of their supremacy. It is estimated that of a total approximately of 80,000 prisoners were deported here. From 1857 till about approximately 1936 and 7, this number of 80,000 is just a representation of all who were deported to Andamans as a whole and not just to cellular jail. Now that we have spoken about the dreaded location, the mysterious architecture, and the kind of prisoners, let us move to understand what was it actually to spend your days as a convict in these notorious jails. Other than isolation, the work quotas given to the prisoners were frequently impossible to complete in the given time frame, and dire punishment followed for those who failed to meet those quotas. Often, these punishments were nothing but inhuman. Torture and flogging were frequently resorted on iron triangular frame, bar fetters, crossbar fetters, neck ring shackle, iron leg chains, gunny bag uniforms, unhygienic diet to those who refused to submit to the brutal wardens. No cells, mind you, no cells in the cellular jail had toilet facilities. The punishment varied from handcuffs for a week and fetters for 6 months to solitary confinement. If calling our freedom fighters as convicts, criminals, political prisoners was not enough, they were subjected to tortures that one could never ever imagine. Our freedom fighters were assigned daily tasks. These tasks were designed by the British not only to demoralize the men, but also to completely break them. Their days would be monotonous and long. In the morning, they would join a queue to be allocated a punishing work quota, the results of which would be scrutinized at the end of the day. If they failed to meet this quota, they would be beaten or whipped. Like we mentioned, there were many freedom fighters at cellular jail. The ones who survived the torture wrote their accounts, heart-wrenching accounts. Let us share with you some of the excerpts from these accounts. Sushil Dasgupta was given the job of endlessly pounding coconut husks to be used as fiber in certain fabrics, all under the watch of guards. Famous freedom fighter Barindra Kumar Ghosh, who spent almost 10 years in the jail, described those who were given the job of coconut or coir pounding were in a strange state of suspense, as it were, between life and death. Ghosh said each prisoner was given the dry husk of 20 coconuts, which would have been beaten repeatedly, hit with wooden hammer until soft. The skin would be then removed and the coconut would be dipped in water and bashed again. He said it was only by sheer pounding that the entire husk would drop off, leaving the precious fibers. Men like Sushil carrying out this quota were expected to produce over 2 pounds of fiber a day. Another grueling task took place in the oil mill and caused many of the men to collapse from exhaustion. Their bodies covered with only strips of cloth, the prisoners had to manually run a large wheel which would press and squeeze coconuts for oil. They were expected to produce 30 pounds of oil a day, a huge amount that was almost unable to complete in one work session. It drove many to insanity. The 2 names of freedom fighters that you heard, Sushil Dasgupta and Barindra Kumar Ghosh, we will be sharing the stories of them in the following slides. Listening to these accounts, it often comes to your mind, was there any hope? Or was there any light at the end of the dark tunnel of imprisonment? Could the prisoners get any kind of easy task ever? Well, if we were to believe the Andaman and Nicobar Gazetteer in 1908, the life convicts had to experience the worst in the first 6 months, where the discipline was severest. The next 18 months, work was hard, but discipline was less irksome. For the next 3 years, the life convicts would apparently live in the barracks up at night and go out to labor under supervision. For that labor, they received the reward, but capabilities, of course, were being studied and monitored. During the next 5 years, they remained laboring convict, but were eligible for petty posts of supervision, an easier form of labor. Unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, that all of this was just in writing, and as we understand from the memoirs, the actual picture was far away from what was published in the Gazetteer. Today, when we celebrate freedom, the contribution of every revolutionary, every freedom fighter matters to us. Every little effort that culminated into independence of our nation from the shackles of colonialism is precious to us. It is difficult, very, very difficult to pick and choose whose story to share. But in the interest of time, we shall share with you some of the anecdotes around few of the prominent freedom fighters convicted at cellular jail. They were all called the political prisoners. Today, we will take you on a journey of Veer Savarkar, Batukeshwar Dutt, Barin Kumar Ghosh, Fazle Haq Khairabadi, Sushil Das Gupta, and many more. Over to Shomrita for the narratives of our freedom fighters.
Vinayak Damodar Savarkar was born in 1883 near Nasik, Maharashtra. He was known for his bravery, so he earned the nickname of Veer. He was influenced by his elder brother Ganesh, who played a very important role during his teenage years. Savarkar was inspired by political leaders like Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and Bipin Chandra Pal. He completed his bachelor's degree from Fergusson College, Pune. He then went on to study law in England with the help of Shyamji Krishna Verma. It is said that Savarkar inspired his fellow Indian students and formed an organization called Free India Society to fight against the Britishers for freedom. He always had a knack for writing and published his first biography, Barrister Savarkar, under the pen name Chitragupta. Second edition of the book was published later by Veer Savarkar Prakashan. In his book, The History of the War of Indian Independence, he analyzed the circumstances of the 1857 uprising. The book described the revolt of 1857 as a unified national uprising of India as a country against the atrocities of the British Empire. It was via this book that Savarkar became one of the first writers to call for India's first war of independence against British. While Savarkar was studying in England, in India, Savarkar's brother organized protest against the Indian Council Act of 1909, also known as the Minto-Morley Reform. British police claimed that Veer Savarkar had plotted in the crime and issued a warrant against him. To evade the arrest, Veer Savarkar escaped to Paris and took shelter at Bikaji Kama's residence. On 13th March 1910, he was arrested by the British police, but the French government got irritated when the British authorities had not initiated appropriate legal proceedings to arrest Veer Savarkar in Paris. The Permanent Court of International Arbitration was handling the dispute between the British authorities and the French government and gave the verdict in 1911. The verdict came out against Veer Savarkar and he was sentenced to imprisonment and was sent back to Bombay. Later, he was taken to Andaman and Nicobar Islands on 4th July 1911. He was put in cellular jail, Kala Pani. He was severely tortured in jail, but his national freedom spirit continued, and there he started teaching his fellow prisoners how to read and write. Savarkar was released from the prison on January 6, 1924. And during his prison time, he wrote many pamphlets about religion and to uplift the national spirit of the country. In 1964, He felt that his goal of independent India was now achieved, and thus he declared his wish to attain Samadhi. He started his hunger strike on February 1st, 1966, and passed away on February 26, 1966. Veer Savarkar was few of the freedom fighters who lived to see an independent India. The airport at Port Blair, Andaman and Nicobar's capital, was renamed as Veer Savarkar International Airport in 2002. Turning our page to the story of another brave soul, a revolutionary, Batukeshwar Dutt. Born on 18th November 1910 in West Bengal, he pursued his studies in Kanpur. It was in Kanpur that he met the legendary revolutionary leader Bhagat Singh. Dutt was also had a close connect with Chandrasekhar Azad, and in no time Dutt joined the Hindustan Republican Association. On 8 April 1929, Bhagat Singh and Batukeshwar Dutt threw 2 bombs from the Central Assembly Visitors Gallery. As the smoke filled the hall, both young revolutionaries shouted, "Inqilab Zindabad." They also threw pamphlets which stated that the incident was done to prevent the trade disputes and public safety bill, which was being presented in the assembly. It also said that this was in retaliation for the death of the nationalist leader Lala Lajpat Rai. Apart from few injuries, nobody was killed in the bombing, which was as per the plan. The revolutionaries only wanted attention towards their activities and demands. Both Singh and Dutt quoted arrest. Their stated motive was to make the deaf hear. Dutt's trial started in May 1929. He was defended by lawyer Asaf Ali. The verdict was out in June. Dutt was sentenced to life imprisonment and was deported to cellular jail. After Dutt's release, he took part in the freedom struggle, notably in the Quit India movement. He was again jailed for 4 years. Despite being involved in one of the most illustrious episodes of revolutionary freedom struggle, he led a very non-political life afterwards. He contracted an illness and died in the hospital in Delhi in 1965. He was later cremated in the same place beside his comrades Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, and Rajguru years later. B.K. Dutt will always be remembered as a loyal friend, a fierce revolutionary, and for his love and sacrifices made for this country. Going back in time, post 1857, another prominent prisoner from the revolt was Fazle Haq Khairabadi. Many might not have heard his name, but he was one of the most prominent literators who voiced dissent in the revolt of 1857. Born in Khairabad, town of Sitapur district in Uttar Pradesh, he was a philosopher, an author, a poet, and a religious scholar. An interesting fact about Khairabadi is that he is the great-grandfather of the famous lyricist of our country, Mr. Javed Akhtar. Khairabadi played an active role in the Indian revolt of 1857. It is also said that he had prepared a temporary constitution for the revolutionary government of Delhi and was also a member of the military council. Maulvi continued his anti-British activities by joining the revolutionaries of Lucknow and Awadh. Khairabadi also issued a fatwa against the British to rouse the religious sentiments of the Muslims. After the revolt of 1857, Khairabadi was arrested by the British authorities on 30th January 1859 at Khairabad. He had chosen to be his own counsel and defended himself. His argument and the way he defended his case was so convincing that the presiding magistrate was writing his judgment, exonerating him when he had confessed to giving fatwa declaring that he could not lie. He was sentenced for life to prison at Cellular Jail in Andaman with the confiscation of his property by the Judicial Commissioner of the Awadh Court. He reached Andaman on 8 October 1859. Fazle Haq allegedly wrote with pencil, charcoal, on shreds of cloth and paper, coded Arabic notes in prose and poetry, notably Qasidas, which was smuggled out of banishment by an earlier released prisoner. It was during his time in prison that he also wrote a rare treatise on nature and cause of 1857 on the prison walls in Arabic. His life of valor came to an end on 20th August 1861 during his incarceration. Our next freedom fighter on the list is Barindra Kumar Ghosh. Barindra Kumar Ghosh was born in Croydon, near London, on January 5, 1880. He came from the family of intellectuals. His brother, Aurobindo Ghosh, was a revolutionary who later became a spiritualist. He also took military training in Baroda. Barindra, often known as Barin, was influenced by the revolutionary spirit of his brother Aurobindo. In 1902, he came to Calcutta and started organizing the revolutionary groups along with Jyotindranath Mukherjee. The Anushilan Samiti and Jugantar group was formed later in the same year. Barin and Jyotin, popularly known as Bagha Jyotin, played an active role in recruiting young revolutionaries, training them, and orchestrating activities that instilled fear among the British. The revolutionaries formed the Maniktola group in Kolkata. It was a secret place where they started manufacturing bombs and collected arms and ammunition. Barin Ghosh was arrested in connection with the Alipur bomb case, in which Khudiram Bose and Prafulla Chaki had mistakenly bombed a carriage. On 11th August 1908, at the young age of 18, Khudiram walked to the gallows with much pride and honor. Barin Ghosh and many others were arrested from Barin's Garden House in Maniktola suburb of Calcutta. Aurobindo Ghosh was also among those who was arrested, but later was released because of the absence of witness. Barin Ghosh with other revolutionaries were held and later deported to Cellular Jail in Andaman in 1909. After the end of World War I, the British government, in an amnesty act passed on 23rd December 1919, granted freedom to some of the selected political prisoners. Barin Ghosh was one of those who had been set free. Barin Ghosh was a prolific writer and published 20 books after his release from the Cellular Jail in 1929. In the book, In the Tale of My Exile, an autobiography by Barin, documented the chilling detail of his life as a prisoner, serving life term at the notorious Cellular Jail in Andaman. Barin spent most of his later years in Pondicherry Ashram in the company of his brother Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. He often said that the Pondicherry Ashram was an abode which gave him hope and spiritual strength after the experience of traumatic life and death inside Cellular Jail. Our next political prisoner is Sushil Das Gupta. Sushil Das Gupta was born in Borishan, now in Bangladesh. He was a member of the revolutionary group Jugantar Dal of Bengal. He was first arrested in the Putia Mail robbery case of 1929 and was taken to Medinipur prison. From there, he escaped along with fellow revolutionaries Sachin Kaur Gupta and Dinesh Majumdar. With little choice to raise funds for political activities, Sushil along with 4 other Jugantor members, robbed a bus at the gunpoint. As they fled, the police intercepted them, and in the shootout, Sushil was shot and eventually caught. His punishment was to be sent out of sight and out of mind to the cellular jail at Port Blair, where he would join many of his other exiled political activists. Sushil was just 26 years old when he was arrested and shipped out to Andaman Islands on 17 August 1932. Daily life became so dire for Sushil and his inmates that they decided to protest during 1932 to 37. Many of them took part in massive series of hunger strikes. On 3rd January 1933, he and 7 other men stopped eating and outlined demands for proper toilets, better food, after being fed for months on meager diet of rice and bread and vegetables, which often contained small stones and inedible wild grass. 4 months later, they took part in a mass hunger strike on 12th May 1933, which lasted for 45 days. On the 6th day of the hunger strike, the guards came for some of the men. A decision had been made among the British officials to start the brutal and long procedure of force feeding the prisoners. For 3 freedom fighters, Mahavir Singh, Mohan Kishore Namdas, and Mohit Moitro, resistance came at a cost. They all died from force feeding milk after milk seeped into their lungs, resulting into pneumonia. Sushil and the rest of the inmates heard the news of the death of their inmates and their bodies being thrown in the sea with stones weighing down their backs. This motivated the prisoners to continue their struggle. In the end, the British relented and accepted the prisoners' demand. Sushil was returned to a local jail in West Bengal on 18th January 1938. The following year, cellular jail shipped out its last few prisoners. However, it wasn't until 1943 that Sushil tasted freedom, something that was unfortunately short-lived. On 11th September 1947, Sushil took to the streets on Park Circus in Calcutta to lead a peaceful demonstration. A month after the Indian Independence Act had been passed, and a year after 4,000 people had died in the city during the riots between Hindus and Muslims. Tragically, the demonstrators were attacked and Sushil was fatally stabbed. He had only experienced freedom for 4 years. On this slide on your screen, you can see Sushil Das Gupta's son narrating the account of his father's personal experience in Kalapani much later. Moving on from the stories of the freedom fighters, I request Dr. Shomi to take us through the rest of the story of Kalapani.
Bhai Parmanand, Yogendra Shukla, Purnachandra Lahiri, many other names who faced tortures. However, these tortures of Kalapani could not continue in the dark for long. There was a rising dissent amongst the people in the mainland. The British government decided to repatriate the political prisoners from cellular jail in 1937-1938. It is, however, unclear if all were repatriated before the Japanese invasion of 1942. As mentioned on the slide, distressed prisoners in cellular jail frequently rebelled against the tyranny of jail officials. Mass hunger strikes were resorted to, especially between 1932 and 1937. The last strike began in July 1937, continued for almost 45 days. Once again, the British had to kneel. They had to give in. The Britishers now were to submit. The prisoners wanted to return to their own soil and partake in the last years of freedom struggle. The strike was terminated only once the intervention of Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore came in. Our freedom fighters were sent home between September 1937 and January 1938. and Andaman's cellular jail was shut down forever. While the cellular jail had closed its operations, there was yet another episode that needs to be mentioned here about Andaman and Nicobar Islands, without which the story would remain incomplete. This was the period of Second World War, when the world powers were looking for alliances. They were either trying to free themselves from colonial tyranny or trying to annex new places, bring more colonies under their rule. Amidst this situation, when the world was raging with shifting power dynamics, the Japanese occupied Andaman and Nicobar Islands during the World War II between 1942 and 1945. If you have questions in mind, how did the Japanese occupy this island and who was the prime architect behind this expansion? Let me answer those questions in the next slide. Yes, you guessed it right. It was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Bose had been the leader of the young radical wing of Indian National Congress in the late 1920s and 30s, rising to become the Congress president between 1938 and 39. For his acts against the British government, he was put under house arrest before he escaped from India in 1940. Bose arrived in Germany in April 1941, where the leadership offered the unexpected, if sometimes ambivalent, sympathy for the cause of India's independence, contrasting starkly with their attitude towards the colonized people and diverse ethnic communities. In November 1941, with German funds, the Free India Center was set up in Berlin, and soon Free India Radio, on which Bose started broadcasting. By spring 1942, in the light of Japanese victories in Southeast Asia and changing German priorities, a German invasion of India became untenable, and Bose became extremely keen on moving to Southeast Asia. The Indian National Army, or the Azad Hind Fauj, was formed. It was an armed force formed by Indian nationalists, prisoners of wars, and Imperial Japan in 1942 in Southeast Asia during the Second World War. Its aim was nothing but to secure India's independence from the British rule. In October 1943, the Provisional Indian Government was formed in Singapore by the Japanese under the leadership of Subhash Chandra Bose, and the announcement was made that Andaman and Nicobar Islands would be handed over to the provincial government. There was a guard of honor. Then there was also a ceremony where Netaji was taken to Ross Island for a duration of 2 days. He did not get an opportunity to meet the local people, though he did visit the cellular jail, also made a public address. December 30th, 1943, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose unfurled the Azad Hind national flag for the first time at the Gymkhana grounds, now called the Netaji Stadium in Port Blair. He declared the Andaman and Nicobar Islands the first Indian territory liberated from the British rule. Whatever we mentioned right now about Netaji and the course of entire episodes, this is of course a much simplified version of a very complex history. Anyhow, the Allied powers reoccupied the island in 1945. On 6th August 1945, atom bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. On 14th August 1945, Japan surrendered unconditionally. The 4 out of the original 7 wings of the cellular jail had to be demolished after a damage during earthquake in 1941, and allegedly 2 more wings of the cellular jail were demolished by the Japanese for building materials in which they were to be used for fortification. And yes, with this, now we can sincerely say that the infamous cellular jail had ceased to function. We attained independence on 15th of August 1947, a day which made every sacrifice made by our freedom fighters worth it, a day which had given us the liberty of being where we are as a nation, as proud citizens. The taste of freedom can never, ever be explained in words, and the sacrifices made by our freedom fighters to earn this freedom can also be never quantified in words. The word is freedom. After independence in 1947, many of the erstwhile political prisoners, freedom fighters, visited this island. Their association, called the Ex-Andaman Political Prisoners Fraternity Circle, put up a proposal to preserve the remaining 3 wings. This was then when Cellular Jail was declared as a national memorial by the Prime Minister of India on 11th of February, 1979. With this, it is time to move on to the present times and requesting Nidhi ma'am to take the screen space.
At this point, I must mention that no amount of words or sentences or photos can describe the pain our freedom fighters experienced in the Cellular Jail. We have made an attempt to share with you based on events on popular accounts. I must mention here that there is lots more that we need to cover, but in the interest of time, we will move quickly to our next segment. A brief on the destination Andaman and its precious islands. In present times, when the pandemic has made it absolutely necessary for us to value and appreciate nature and environment, where we also need to practice social distancing, locations like Andamans can surely become one of the most sought after destinations. However, it is critical to mention here that we need to be careful when it comes to preserving these pristine locations. We have been raising awareness on water through our impact initiative, Water Heritage, to ensure safe practices in locations where environment and natural resources play a key role. Water has driven major innovations, and it is time to realize the power of water in heritage and tourism as well. This is followed by concentration towards sustainable development, mandating minimizing the environmental impacts, the impacts which keep spirited performance for survival of the human race. Repleting with shimmering beaches, lagoons of turquoise blue waters, and a lot of history, Andaman and Nicobar Islands is a little slice of paradise in itself. The Andamans comprise of more than 300 islands. This place has it all, from some of the most pristine beaches to thrilling water sports, fun-filled island hopping, exploring the historical anecdotes of the island, the tantalizing seafood, and much, much more. The island has a lot to offer to its tourists. The capital of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Port Blair, is a poignant reminder of the many sacrifices our freedom fighters made here. Port Blair is your entry point to the island state. In Port Blair, you have the Cellular Jail Museum. The last remaining wings of the jail are opened for tourists. Most tourists enjoy the light and sound show here. A city tour of Port Blair includes a visit to the Fisheries Museum, the Anthropology Museum that displays the tribal essential and artifacts, and Naval Marine Museum, which is Samudrika. It gives a great retrospect on the history, the shells, the coral, marine life, geography, and archaeology of these islands. We are now going to move to our next island. This is the Ross Island. It's famous for its ruins of the penal colony that precedes the Cellular Jail or Kalapani. The jail was formerly used to confine political prisoners, and we can still see the ruins of the galleons at this island. The island also has ruins of the British opulent colonial past in the form of bakery, bungalows, etc. The place, no matter how notorious it has been during the colonial period, is now much more a beautiful location and is one of the most important tourist destinations. The island is now renamed as Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Sweep, as mentioned by Shomi as well. A destination known for its nature walk amidst the friendly deers and peacocks. Smritika Museum that records the life of political prisoners. The island houses the Commissioner's Palace, the bakery, the British Officers Club, a church, an old cemetery, and many more ruins. Moving on, we have now reached the Neil Island. It's known as the Shahdeep Sweep now. The island is also famous for its coral reefs and white shores. The best time to visit its beaches is in the mornings as well as in the evenings. The morning time is especially good. If you'd like to go snorkeling, then it's one of the best times, as you can also enjoy the coral reefs. Because of the beauty of the reefs, the Neil Island is often termed as the coral capital of Andaman. Do not worry if you're not too much of a snorkeling enthusiast. You can enjoy the beach simply by carrying a hammock and a book to enjoy the calm and cool sea breeze. There are a number of benches for strollers to rest their feet, and local vendors who will sell coconut water to quench your thirst. The destination is also known for pristine and unspoiled beaches, and some of them are Bharatpur, Sitapur, Lakshmanpur, and many, many more exist. An hour from here is the next destination, which is the Havelock Island. It's now renamed as Swaraj Island. I hope all of you remember Sir Havelock from the revolt of 1857. Havelock Islands is home to Radhanagar Beach, which is one of the most popular beaches in India and is also an awarded beach. The beach is situated around 12 kilometers, which is approximately 30 minutes from the Havelock Island, and again, a must-visit site. The waters are sparkling blue and devoid of any wave action. Another island is the Elephant Island, which has a number of activities such as scuba diving, snorkeling, boating, fishing, much more. Talking about these beautiful landscapes, these beaches, one almost tends to forget the apathy our freedom fighters experienced, the brutality and the gory history behind everything that seems so beautiful now. Andaman truly depicts a contrasting history and a contrasting picture for the travelers. With this, we come to the conclusion of our session today. Our mission is to provide quality and excellence to our customers promptly and exclusively. We recognized at the very start that promoting culture and heritage is important to communities. We have engaged thoroughly with the host communities to build strong relationships and regional impacts of the operations by curating tourism-centric products. We intend to offer tourism experiences which makes a positive impact on the lives of every Indian. Passion and respect for culture and heritage is integral to the way India City Walks and our flagship brands conduct heritage experiences. Therefore, celebrating India's diverse heritage is all about making country's plural legacy accessible and relevant to everyone without losing its integrity. Some of our community impact-driven programs like Water Heritage, Monument Friends, My Neighborhood, My Heritage are to enhance employment opportunities, green touring, and deploy cultural opportunities for all kinds of travelers and residents. In the new normal, tours and activities delivery will be done by our flagship brands, observing safety, hygiene guidelines. The people engagement will be integrated through local interactions. Connect with us to discover India differently and take the opportunity for exploring the city's soul. As we always say, India dekho hamare saath, chalo aajkal ke saath. I'm very thankful to the Ministry of Tourism for this opportunity, and I hand it back to Mr. Rajesh Kumar Sahu.
Thank you, Ms. Nidhi, Dr. Roy, Ms. Samrita for this beautiful presentation and taking us through the corridors of beautiful Andaman and Nicobars, including the Indian freedom struggle days, showing the entire architecture style of cellular jail, the beautiful story and the hardship faced by our great freedom strugglers, and clearly explaining the each and every individual freedom fighters' perspective, how they tolerated the great tortures of the Britishers those days. Since we are conducting the cellular jail webinar today, and this is a great opportunity to say that today Honorable Prime Minister of India has inaugurated the underwater optical fiber cable between Chennai and Andaman that will enhance the connectivity in the Andamans and the entire hotspot zone of the entire Andaman and Nicobar. This will definitely create a great a different tourism experience for the tourists, those who wants to visit this destination, which was having a connectivity issue earlier, but that is going to be very seamless now. And as you mentioned that it's a beautiful location, destination, one should visit it. And we have got this 2,300 kilometer wide long undersea cable connecting the entire group of islands in Andaman and Nicobar. That is going to be make it a very perspective tourism sport in the area. And from the Look East policy also, it has been a great place for the Indian nation. This has been a very beautiful session today, and I just want to say that the struggle of the freedom fighters was not limited to that. Only to the Andaman and Nicobar, that was only a epitome of those strugglers days, and the way they were treated will not remain as a story. It is a beautiful memoir encrypted in the hearts of the billions of Indians. I would like to say, शहीदों की चिताओं पर लगेंगे हर बरस मेले, वतन पर मरने वालों का यही बाकी निशा होगा. कभी वह दिन भी आएगा जब अपना राज देखेंगे, जब अपनी ही जमी होगी और अपना आसमां होगा. So that way we have got Apni Jammi and Apna Asma. India got finally the freedom on 15 August 1947 from the British rule. And we are celebrating this series with Ministry of Tourism conducting this Apna Dekho Apna Desh webinar series. And in this series also we are taking the lesser known destinations, lesser known places, lesser known unheard stories of this country to our beautiful viewers, those who want to understand the country in a better perspective from the tourism perspective, want to plan their journeys, want to see it differently. As Ms. Nidhi is saying that there are many places which are not explored, and it should be seen holistically. So Ms. Nidhi, I just wanted to know one thing. Today when we see this connectivity issue getting resolved, and you know, when you are offering the city walks, then what more you are going to offer to the tourists, those who are now expecting to visit or have a travel itinerary in their list in coming days?
So thank you for the question. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, Andaman and Nicobar Islands are one of these places which need to be explored more, but very carefully with all the new norms to be kept in place. And because the place has so much to offer, in our walks, in our experiences that we will be delivering, we will be following the new norms of safety, of the new norms of hygiene, of course. But at the same time, it will be integral to you know, these new developments that are happening in terms of the optical fibers and other things. They're going to help the travelers because it will help them to be connected. The Wi-Fi are going to be better, and it will be easier for them to be connected. And I think more Instagrammers and more posts and all of this will come in even more, and more people will start connecting from the island itself. So there'll be more awareness and more publicity of the same. That's what I feel, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Nidhi. And Dr. Soumi Roy, what's your take from the historical perspective when we are connecting the modern tourism infrastructure with the historical perspective? Then how do you see all these things coming together? And for the new generation, those who want to witness the Indian freedom struggle journey through these corridors, what's your take on that?
I think it is absolutely necessary to appreciate new age technology coming into the islands or any part of our country, because with the 21st century, you need to be in the speed of lightning speed, as we say. However, I also feel that whatever we share is something that cannot always be felt or etched through Google searches. So while technology will bring us to share with many people, the experiences, it will attract more people to come there. It will resolve a lot of network issues. It will also help raising awareness. Like we mentioned in our concluding spaces, that these are the places which are absolutely pristine. They are untouched, and they need to be absolutely safeguarded with awarenesses like Water Heritage as our program, where you talk about that while you're going in with technology, please make sure that the awareness is also raising at a very huge scale, where people are interested in going there, taking care of the place, and spreading the message of history, of tourism, of all of these beauties that our destinations have across the globe. I think technology plays a very important role. Today, all of this Dekho Apna Desh webinar series is possible because of technology. And it's all thanks to the Wi-Fi and the connectivity that is bringing us all together. So this is going to be a great boost, great impetus to the tourism world in Andaman and Nicobar, where people would love to get connected even more. And with that, as people who are trying to propagate the destination and the stories and history of all the people, we would be more interested in saying that explore with us, so that we can give you that touch and feel of what communication is and explore the technology side along. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Roy. With this, we are coming to the end of this webinar, and we are not ending this series, we are keeping it continuing. So in this series, we are again having another webinar on 12, that is on lesser known stories of India's struggle of independence. So we are having many more stories to tell to our viewers, taking you through different corridors this time. Then we have got on 14th, the Jallianwala Bagh and other freedom struggle journeys. And we are taking this webinar till 15th of August. So thank you, Ms. Nidhi, Dr. Roy, Ms. Somrita for this beautiful session. And we request all our viewers again to enroll for the upcoming webinars and keep encouraging the Dekho Apna Desh webinar series of Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. And by this method, we'll keep showing you the entire country, its broad contours, the different art cultures, and particularly during this week, we are experiencing you through the journey of the Indian freedom struggle. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.